Welcome to Value Investing webinar once again. In these unusual times, I'm here to discuss a very important topic: how to make sense of the numbers, the company's earnings, or all the numbers that get reported after a quarter which looked like a washout quarter. And we know that companies came to a standstill. Consumers they just consumed the bare essentials. And how to make sense of the numbers, how to make sense of all the earnings that will be reported. Most of the things that we see is normally on a quarterly basis or an annual basis, which will even the annual numbers will have a reflection of the quarterly numbers. Companies coming to a standstill for a quarter and maybe lingering for many companies even now. How to make sense of it, and how much should we discount? How much should we? What value should we attach? Uh, Last week, the SEBI chairman said that companies were demanding that they should be given a relaxation that they report the earnings for 6 months, and he was of the view that it doesn't make sense because it will be too long a period for which investors will have no understanding of what is going on. It will be absence of facts for investors. So he was very much against it, and he also seemed extremely disturbed, or he was quite apprehensive about the individual investors' participation in the market, while everybody thought that market will be in a tailspin. So that apart, I'm here to discuss making sense of the financials, corporate financials. With me is Subbu from Quantum Asset Management, a familiar face. So welcome, Subbu, after a gap. And this is the important thing that I have a set of questions for you. And so prior to this whole crisis, the Indian economy was already showing signs of a slowdown with GDP growth and demand affected. And this has been a big blow. So this lockdown has been a massive blow. So how do you go about making sense of the earnings of companies for the fourth quarter or the first quarter, the new financial?
Yeah, so the focus, I think if you are focused on a quarterly numbers, then definitely I don't see any meaning coming out of what exactly the impact would be, and trying to make a guess as to what could the earnings be for this quarter. So from our side, while we are looking at the commentary given by the management for the quarterly numbers, we are not really attaching anything significant to that, barring looking at the balance sheet strength and ensuring that there is enough cash for the company to last the slowdown. What we are trying to look at is really look forward, and that happens to be somewhere between 2000 FY22 and FY23. FY21 we definitely think will be a washout, in the sense that demand will definitely take a hit, except in certain companies. And assuming things normalize, FY22 should be better, but that also may not be normal. You will see a rebound coming in FY22. Therefore, we are increasing our horizon and trying to see from that slowdown, from an economy which has been affected by a variety of things, what could a normalized number look like in FY23? And therefore, we are looking at some sort of average between FY22 and FY23 to get a better sense as to what could be the valuations and how normalized that could be. The quarterly numbers, as you know, will be impacted by a variety of things, including COVID-related expenses, inventory readjustment, all of that. So from that angle, I don't think we can attach great significance to the quarterly numbers, but the commentary is important. What is the management saying, and how confident are they looking at looking forward?
All investing, relies heavily on, basic metrics like price earning, debt to equity, working capital, and so on. So, with one is a washout earning, and many businesses are likely to be raising capital, and quite a bit if they're lucky. So, how does the whole complexion changes? Looking at numbers, has it become very, what are you looking at in the balance sheet? How and the assumption that you had that here is a strong balance sheet that would have been tested now. So, are you getting surprises there?
We haven't yet, the kind of companies which we track, the kind of companies which we hold in the portfolios, we haven't yet seen any negative surprises, and we don't hope to see any negative surprises because most of these companies are good in terms of the balance sheet. And when I say good in terms of balance sheet, there are two ways to look at it. Either they are generating so much of cash flows in their regular business, plus they have enough cash in their books that it will allow them to face a slowdown over the next, say, two quarters. The other way to look at it is, or it is founded by management or groups which can fund the deficit if any issue arises. By and large, we would look at companies which are extremely low on debt. In many cases, we would rather prefer a company with zero debt and a good balance sheet from a cash point of view. And there are quite a few, whether you look at it in consumer discretionary or you look at some engineering companies, there are a few companies which have that kind of balance sheet. And we hold most of our companies are of that kind where cash is quite good. And we do see that they should be able to manage the next 6 months. Now, from a company's perspective, what else they are doing is definitely to curtail the cost, and that means their cash outflows also could be lower. Now, that could come either in terms of lower capex, or it could come in terms of lower admin cost. Travel has been slashed across the board. In many
Yeah.
cases, employee cost has been rationalized. For instance, in IT companies, if you look, many companies have a fixed salary component and a variable component, and they have reduced the variable component. So while from a headline perspective, you will never see IT company announcing that salary is slashed. The way they
Yeah.
have done it is fixed as it is, but on the variable they have made adjustment, effectively bringing down the cost by around 20-30%. And I think all these steps will help in conserving the cash. And maybe what we thought would be 6 months, maybe they will have enough cash to last beyond those 6 months as well.
What kind of opportunity this has created in your investment framework in terms of the numbers getting reported? What are the what is have you come across positive surprises which has created some opportunity for you to invest?
From not since March, in March, when the markets had declined, it did give us opportunities to look at stocks in different segments, particularly in financials, some in consumer discretionary, some in this field of IT and engineering. These were generally stocks which used to be expensive in a normal running market or economy. But in March, when that huge sell-off came, these kind of stocks also declined. For
Yeah.
us, that was in some sense, I guess it was a surprise that they declined, but for us, it was an opportunity. And one of the reasons why these kind of stocks declined is in March, everybody was just willing to sell and get out. The foreigners were particularly very aggressive, and therefore many of these stocks became cheap when you look at it from a normalized longer term basis.
2 months back, just while this crisis was unfolding, I had my interaction with, I was able to speak to Ajit, and he was saying that you are revisiting your process. What are the different things you are doing now? What difference it has caused now? You are, changing your track or changing your methodology or reviewing your process. What has been the result of that now?
Sure. So, as you know, for a value investor, it has been quite a challenging period over the last couple of years. While value stood up in these months, but it still is a difficult scenario when you look at it from a comparison to the benchmark. And what we called as traditional value industries, or where we found value, the catalysts are sometimes missing. So, from a process perspective, right now, given the current situation, we first of all re-looked at the financials of all the company. First question is to see that they last the downturn. Therefore, no company with a very high debt or or a very high capex program. Those kind of companies be avoided, and ensure that we have investments in company which have adequate cash. The second changes we made was really to also identify the whole process of buying and selling stocks. As a value investor, we would typically hold stocks for around 5 years. If you look at our annual turnover, we would normally hold stocks for 5 years, and 5% of that time. So, roughly around 3 months is what it will take for us sometimes to fill a position, because we don't aggressively the stock. We wait for the stock to come to our buy price. The moment it hits our buy price, we very gradually build the position. But on the other hand, when a stock hit our sell limit, we used to very aggressively get out.
Okay.
But there we have seen as a value investor that while you also bought in early, if you get out very early, also it hurts. So on the selling side, just as we were gradually building up our position while buying, we said if a stock hit our sell limit, we will not aggressively sell it out unless there is something fundamentally wrong with the company, but we will
Okay.
go in line with the volumes. So that's another change we made.
So ride your
And
winners too.
yeah, so sort of ride the winners a little longer, although not very long, because the stock has hit our close to our sell limit, but we are not desperate to sell it out immediately, which we have seen in the past. It used to hurt us. And the third is reevaluate every company, every sector from a valuation perspective itself. As you know that consumer staples have been very expensive, very expensive for long, but our numbers were even more conservative. Like, it was supremely conservative when it came to identifying stocks in the growth sector. So we reevaluated whether we need to look at the fundamentals in a different way. We looked at things like discounted cash flow more closely to see what can be the justified P for a consumer staple stock, and we have readjusted that. If we have been very conservative, I'm not saying we have become aggressive, but we are trying to become more realistic as to what is the price at which we could buy.
So
So
the
fundamental
rigidity has been
changes,
moderated,
look
you
at the
mean?
numbers, and change the process of buying and selling. All these changes we have in the process.
So you think this will translate into something very substantial? You would have backtested these processes, would have been if it would have been implemented in the past. What kind of difference it would have made to your investment returns?
So we have not looked at it from the point of view whether it would have made a difference to the investment return, but probably uh, in some cases maybe we could have got a stock in the consumer name. Either it could be in the consumer discretionary or it could be the consumer staple, and that could have added the certain value to the portfolio, or it could have added that kind of growth momentum which was needed.
As you were mentioning that foreigners were on the run, they were running away in March, and in the middle of the greatest uncertainty we have seen in many years. And over the past 2 months, they have turned net buyers, and they seem to be fueled by huge liquidity by central banks. And is this market resurgence sustainable? Because given that we are not through with all the crisis, what's going to happen when growth continues to remain very growth, it doesn't come back? We are not back in, and cash runs out, or a lot of companies facing cash crunch.
Yeah, see, we always believe and that eventually markets will have to reflect the fundamentals.
Yes.
You can give it artificial boost through liquidity and through talks and a variety of other things, but eventually markets will look at fundamentals, will look at earnings, and that's the risk in the market right now. The huge amount of liquidity pumped in across the globe. It's not just in India. Even if you look at in the US and in developed markets, stocks which are technically bankrupts have also gone up significantly. And even in
Yes.
India, we have seen that kind of flow in the current month has helped, aided also by a lot of flows from retail investors in India. But if we have to look at it from a fundamental point of view, at some point market will recognize that the earnings growth is not going to be very great, and therefore I think that there might be some correction. But when it will happen, how it will happen, I cannot guesstimate it right now. But I'm looking at the long-term trends, which always comes back to the same point: market will reflect earnings, and therefore all liquidity is fine right now, but eventually that may not help.
So you are apprehensive of, broadly speaking, you see the resurgence not very comforting.
Yeah, when you look at the numbers, it's not the kind of stock price movement, and when you compare it with the kind of earnings which is likely to come out, it not all of it is very comforting.
Okay.
Definitely, one needs to be a little careful.
Thank you for your candid thoughts, Subbu. We
Thank you.
have got quite a few questions for you. Um, Apurva Gupta is asking that because of this COVID crisis, market experts are recommending to look for financial year 22 earnings and make investment based on that. But is it really justified forecasting for future rather than looking at the current financial number of companies?
Yeah, because sort of know that the current numbers are not going to be attractive at all, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore it does make sense to increase your horizon and look beyond the immediate quarter or immediate few quarters. You can be cautious. You can be cautious in terms of your assumption on the company, in terms of the revival which you see in the consumption or in the revenue numbers. But
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely argue that there is a case that you need to look ahead. You need to
Mm-hmm.
look at what we call a normalized economy, right? This is not a
Mm-hmm.
normalized economy. We are just
Yeah.
coming out of the lockdown. Things need to normalize. And therefore, in a normalized economy, what is the kind of earnings a company can generate?
Mm-hmm.
That needs to be looked, and which could be, as I said, FY22 or even
Fine.
beyond.
Uh, Another question, Dr. Virendra Bagade is asking that considering the present overvalued condition of the market and uncertain future of the economy, should we go to multi-asset allocation funds and dynamic asset allocation funds as investors are confused about investing in different asset classes? Should we go with debt or gold, or should we remain invested in equity? So you have all these options. You provide a multi-asset fund, you provide a gold fund. What will be your what will be your suggestion to an investor today?
So a lot depends on your goals, on your financial planning, on the risk appetite you have, your current financial situation, etc. But
Mm-hmm.
as we have shared with investors at our forum, that if you look at our own the products which we have, the value product cannot be your only mainstay. We always tell
Mm-hmm.
people that you should have probably around 20% in a value kind of mutual fund, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
quantum long-term value fund, and the balance you should look at it from a fund of funds point of view, from a multi-asset fund of multi-asset point of view, and definitely on the overall on your net worth basis, at least 10% should be in gold. Now, what
Mm-hmm.
does the multi-asset do? It really invests in equities, in gold, as well as in debt. And therefore,
Mm-hmm.
even if one leg of the three basket does not do well, the other two helps you to generate returns.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are looking for a very stable, safe return, and the multi-asset would definitely be a product which I would advise for investors to look at.
Okay.
Again, if you look at multi-assets return as well, and you compare it with even, let's say, fixed deposits, the
Mm-hmm.
numbers do look attractive. It is not absolutely safe like a fixed deposit, but it still gives you decent returns, and the risk is the volatility is very, very low.
Substantially low.
So there is a case for multi-asset investment as well.
Yeah, and that is at the heart of reducing your risk in terms of diversifying across asset classes. Jeevan Dabra is back to basics. He's asking a very basic question, which is, what is the difference between growth, blend, and value investing? Should not growth be the ultimate aim for any portfolio?
Yeah, you are right. At the end of the day, you want all the companies which you are investing to grow, or most of the companies to grow, unless you are buying a company for its asset value, assuming that the company will sell off. Otherwise, in every
Mm-hmm.
company which you invest, you do expect the earnings to be there, the earnings growth to be there. The only difference is in the case of a growth manager, he is so focused on growth, he is willing to pay a higher multiple for that growth. So the same a company, if a value manager looks at it, he will say, okay, it is growing at this level, but there are these risks, so I will only give it, let us say, 10 times price to earnings. the same company looking at the growth manager will feel a lot more confidence that the growth will come through, and therefore he may be willing to give a 15 times price to earnings ratio. So it depends on how you look at it. But at the end of the day, both of us look at the earnings growth, a value manager as well as a growth manager. A value manager does not pay high multiples for that growth. A growth manager may be willing to pay that. That will be the big difference between the two styles.
Relatively cheaper. Okay. Abhinav Singh is asking that considering good performance of only a few stocks and lack of interest in beyond top 200 stocks, do you think that value in mid and small caps will not result in any meaningful outperformance?
So if you are talking of the current situation, one needs to be extra cautious about the mid-size and the small companies, because even the larger companies are facing humongous challenges from a balance sheet perspective, making the factory run, ensuring that the distribution is well oiled, distributors are in a good financial position, etc. And those will be even more challenging for a smaller company. So technically, there are periods when small cap and mid cap might do well. But first thing to evaluate right now is really does the company have the financial muscle to last the downturn? And therefore, I would be even more extra cautious in putting money in a mid cap or a small cap. And the last is again, like we diversify for a medium risk investor, I would say higher proportion should be in the large cap segment and lesser proportion in the small cap and mid cap. You can't have the reverse. Many times I have seen investors who have very high exposure to small cap and mid cap, and that tends to hurt them terribly. So if you are able to manage that, then I think you can look at those segments. But please do look at the fundamentals, whether those companies will last or will not last.
Ashish Jain is asking that it is commonly said that timing the market is difficult, but a value investor waits for the right price to enter. Is it not contradictory and also a reason for long-term underperformance?
No, that is not the way to look at it. The value investor does not time the market. He looks at a certain price, and that certain price he is looking at because at that price the valuations make sense. So let us say a stock at 100 rupees was at 20 times price to earnings, and you are willing to buy that company only at say 10 times price to earnings, and the stock comes down to 50 rupees. You're not timing it. You're buying it because the valuation makes sense, and therefore you go ahead and invest at 50 rupees and not invest at 100 rupees. So just to clarify, the value investor does not time the market. He looks at the price at which valuations makes sense, and then he will invest.
Okay, Kirti Nagda is asking that, is it prudent strategy to book partial profit in mutual fund when the market is high and re-enter again, even though it is difficult to time the market? Market performance over the last 5 years has prompted me to ask this question.
In theory, I would say yes. In theory, yes. If you can always know when it is going to peak and when it is going to bottom, you can play that game. But it is never like that. In hindsight, when I look at the graph, I can say, oh, I could have got out here, I could have bought here, I could have got out here. But it doesn't work that way. So therefore, I don't think it makes sense to just book profits because you perceive the market to be high. It may go up even higher. So I would say all your buying and selling decisions, investment and redemption decisions should be based on your long-term goals, your asset allocation, and how you are positioned in terms of understanding risk. As long as your asset allocation is in line with your long-term goals and in line with your risk appetite, I don't think it is worthwhile to attempt getting out and getting in at different points in time.
Ramesh Pawar has asked one of the most interesting questions, that P being an important ratio for determining value. Both price and earnings are being affected by a lot of reasons in current times. Yes, price has gone up and earnings are dented. So does it make any sense to analyze P ratios trends today? A tool used by many to determine value.
No, it makes sense even now to look at P. Only you have to recognize that that E is a function of fundamental analysis,
Mhm.
which could be weak for the next year or so. And based on that earnings, if you think the stock is expensive, then I think you should be careful. You should not rush into buying those kind of companies. But eventually, as I said, you are buying companies investing for the earnings. So
Mhm.
within the P and E, you definitely have to take a call on the E, which may be
Yeah.
distant, it may be low, but it still makes sense to look at it.
Uh, Now I have come to the last question. Sumit Ranjan is asking that will the current market situation provide an opportunity to value funds to put up a strong performance considering an unimpressive run over the last few years? If yes, how? Yeah, this is a question, which has been crossing my mind so much more because, looking at the P, the earnings are, the outlook remains grim. The price has gone up. And on the other hand, we have this set of companies with very strong balance sheet, credible businesses. They're available at price. Sometimes I look at those 7, 8%, 10% dividend yields. They have come to such levels, where the dividend yield is twice as much as the risk-free return that we see,
Right,
and they also sometimes look as if they are sustainable. So,
right.
if value, play is going to be the next bright spot.
See, from an investor's perspective, he has a choice of allocating something to growth as well as something to value. And
Mhm.
within that, he has to decide how much to allocate to a growth strategy, how much to allocate to a value strategy, because both are very, very different. Now, whether
Mhm.
value will outperform growth, we cannot say. It all depends on variety of things, including the availability of money, interest rates across the globe, growth coming back, nominal GDP coming back, inflation being at a reasonable level. There are many things which have to fall in place for stocks to do well, both value as well as in growth. But
Mhm.
increasingly, given the fact that so much of money is being pumped in across the globe and it is available, um, the willingness to pay a little more, the willingness to pay a little more for some sort of growth opportunities seems to be high, which
Mhm.
means that the growth guys may continue to benefit going forward. But having said
Mhm.
that, is there risk? I think yes, there is risk to that, because you don't know till what time this liquidity will be made available, and eventually whether it will turn out the way the central bankers are planning or not. So the situation could still be tough for value. As you rightly pointed out, there are many stocks, even if you look at, say, some of the PSU companies, available with a
Yeah,
dividend
I
yield of
was tempted to ask that.
right. But as a value investor, you may buy some of them. But what is the
Mhm.
catalyst for that to unlock? What is the catalyst for the stock to go up? That may be a little distance.
Mhm.
So to answer your question, we cannot say that it will outperform. It has done
Mhm.
in the past. This period is longer. One will have
Mhm.
to wait for probably a longer period before it will start to outperform. Currently, across the globe, value seems to be doing well. But if you even hear to a lot of value investors across the world, they all seem to suggest that that it could be tough to retain this kind of performance going
Mhm.
forward.
Oh, we have come to the end. And thank you very much for sharing your insights, more so at this point when everybody seems to be only having questions without an answer. So look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you very much, Subbu, for joining us.
Thank you, Dhiren. Thanks a lot. Stay safe. See you next time.
Sure. Thank you.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.